Hello, friends, and thanks for hanging out today on another episode of the Market Report here on Cointelegraph. I am your host, Benton, and we are joined again by our resident experts, Jordan Finiseth, Marcel Peckman, and Sam Borgi. Jordan uses his background in psychology and human behavior to spot those emerging trends in the crypto markets, and Sam Borgi is our business editor at Cointelegraph, where he brings a decade of experience in economic analysis and financial market writing. Marcel Peckman applies his 17 years of experience trading derivatives, options, and futures to the crypto derivatives markets. Fellas, what is going on today? Welcome back to the Market Report.
Hey, Benton. I'm eager to see what you guys are going to recommend. I hope that no one is going to recommend a stablecoin here. I know things are not looking great after 3 or 6 months under $45,000, but please, no stablecoin. But I just love when everybody's neutral to bearish. It means that the market is about to rally.
Yeah, this is a good time for us to be doing this show, just because it's like the market's kind of down, getting some good projects in there. I think this is going to be a fun one to talk about.
Yeah, the stablecoin angle, that was supposed to be my out for this one. You know, I'm just going to hold in stables and earn some yield, and hell, there's your show. But I'm like, you know what, that's probably not the most useful way to go about it. So I put together maybe a more exotic basket of cryptos that I think are going to do well. So it's going to be a fun discussion for sure.
Exactly. And so we're going to be diving into what we think could be potentially some of the best top performing tokens for 2022. And we're all going to give you our picks today. So make sure you're staying tuned all the way till the end of the show, where we'll have our live poll. By the way, tell us where you are tuning in from around the globe today. We appreciate you coming and hanging out with the crew from the Market Report. And if you haven't already, make sure you liked and subscribe Cointelegraph. We're here on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Well, daylight savings time this week for those in the States and Canada. So a little bit hour earlier for the body clock than most are used for. This week, though, we're going to give you the markets news rundown, the latest happenings in the crypto Twitter sphere. And then we're going to let Marcel tell us what's happening in the markets and what we should be doing with our Bitcoin and Ethereum right now. So, folks, let's get ready for this ride today. We got a great show lined up for you with some of our hottest picks for 2022. You don't want to miss this, so make sure you're staying tuned for the entire show. So first, let's go ahead and get into our market news rundown with our weekly highlights. What's been happening? Lots of stuff happening around the Twitter sphere this week. I'm looking at the chat right now. Vikram, welcome back, my man. Glad to have you back on the show. Big fan of the show. We got folks tuning in from Pakistan, India, even England. Appreciate it. We love having all you here hanging out with us today. We're going to be giving one subscription to those lucky winners. It's going to be one winner, actually, to be exact. And so make sure you chime into the chat today with your Twitter handle, because we're going to be giving away that 1 month subscription of Markets Pro that you want to get your hands on. But first here, I'm going to let Marcel jump in with some of his analysis of what he's seeing in the markets to give you some of those good nuggets so you know what to do next. So why don't we let him take it away. Danilo, run it back.
Okay, Benton. So I guess what everybody's asking is why I've been stuck Bitcoin between $38,000 to $45,000 for so long. So the first thing that we should understand is that when we're thinking about dollar terms, every asset class is correlated. If there's more dollars in circulation, prices tend to go up, for example. So I'm not saying that Bitcoin and crypto has the same drivers, risks, or pricing mechanisms as the other assets such as stocks, gold, but we got to understand how Bitcoin sits on those top 10 global assets. Danilo, can you share my screen, please? So I enjoyed this site called 8 Market Cap or Infinite Market Cap, where you can see the top tradable assets, and you can see that gold is clearly the leader with $12.2 trillion, right behind Apple, Saudi, Aramco, Microsoft, $2 trillion. And we've got here Bitcoin is the 9th largest tradable asset in the world with $740 billion worth. So, but some of these numbers, thank you, Danilo, some of these big numbers start losing sense. So people tend to use on-chain data or exchange volume to say if Bitcoin is overpriced or not. But wait a minute. We can send $1 billion transactions to each other on Bitcoin, or a couple of market makers can spoof the volumes at Binance or FTX to $10 billion per day. And what is the cost of that? Doing Bitcoin transactions between entities or spoofing volumes of the exchanges is non-existent. It's really small. So the cost to inflate those metrics is meaningless. So that's why I tend not to use them or weight them much. So what I prefer to do to understand if Bitcoin and Ethereum are overvalued, fairly valued, or cheap, I like to measure the size of the ETFs and ETN, so the listed projects, the listed products market size. So for example, we have Grayscale GBTC, we have CoinShares Bitcoin Tracker 1. So there's lots of products listed in Canada, Purpose ETF, listed in Brazil, listed in Europe, even in the United States. And we compare those to gold. So Crypto Compare has a good report on that. Danilo, can you share my screen, please? And in this report, we can check the AUM, or assets under management, on these ETFs and ETN products of Bitcoin and Ethereum and cryptos, and compare those to golds. So Crypto Compare's latest report, as you can see in March, also February 24th, shown a total of $45 billion in crypto products, Bitcoin specifically at $31 billion. So how does that compare to gold? Thank you, Danilo. So gold, going back, gold has $12.2 trillion worth of market cap. And Bitcoin has $31 billion of ETFs and ETNs products. So the $31 billion out of Bitcoin's $740 billion equals roughly 4%. So this time, let's check gold. For that, I'm going to use gold.org data. Danilo, can you share my screen, please? So gold.org shows us the holdings in tons and AUM in billions of dollars on the ETF products, so gold ETFs. As you can see here, the global AUM for gold as of March stands at $238 billion. So gold market cap is $12 trillion. But you got to remember that nearly half of that is used for jewelry, so not really a financial instrument. So the other half, $6 trillion, if we compare this $338 billion in gold ETFs, that's roughly 4% as well. So pretty much in line with Bitcoin. So the data shows us that Bitcoin is fairly priced by judging at the ETFs and ETN products. And roughly the same number can be found for Ethers. Ethereum has $11 billion of ETFs, and its market cap is $300 billion, so 3.8%. So what data is saying, what ETF data is telling us, thank you Danilo, is that both Bitcoin and Ethereum are fairly priced when compared to gold.
So Marcel, I have a question. So what needs to happen for us to get out of this range that we've been in? And where is this money or funds going to come from, in your opinion?
Okay, Benton. So when we're talking about ETFs and ETN products, we're talking about collateral for global shipping, collateral on financial institutions for real estate development, for lending. So the increase of crypto-listed products such as the ETF and ETN tells us that the market is getting more mature. So in turn, by being more mature means that more people will be using and increasing the price.
And do you think we need like this ETF structure in crypto, or can we use like smart contracts or multi-sig, something like that? Can we like advance the technology forward here?
Jordan, not everybody, not every company, not every bank is crypto savvy like you. They are still attached to fiat. They are still heavily dependent on fiat because they're largely rely on government contracts, on banks, investment banks, and non-crypto financial mechanism. But yes, we have structure and products and DeFi and multi-sigs. Everything could be working on a Bitcoin or Ethereum or crypto system, but those guys are not ready for that yet. So right now, the ETF structure alike is necessary.
Yeah, Marcel, actually, I was really interested to see how similar Bitcoin and gold are with respect to ETF breakdown. So it seems like this comparison between Bitcoin and gold, or Bitcoin being the digital gold, it seems to have more legs as time goes on, right?
Sam, yes, Bitcoin is proving itself as digital gold, and Tesla and MicroStrategy using it as reserves is a proof of that. But Bitcoin is much more than that. Ethereum is much more than that. Ethereum has its own ecosystem. Bitcoin has Lightning Network for microtransactions running in El Salvador, and gold cannot do any of that. So if we think it through, the market cap for crypto should be 20, 50, 100 times larger than gold because it has more use cases now, today. Not talking about the future or whatever is going to happen. Right now, crypto has more use case than gold.
So Marcel, I have one last question for you. So recently there was in the States, $1.5 trillion worth of spending to keep the government going. Is that another catalyst where they're going to print more money? All of that could fall into like the crypto markets. What does that kind of look like from where you sit?
No, Benton. We get fooled by these large numbers, like the Fed issuing $10 trillion or going to print another $1.5 trillion. They want to show us that the market has liquidity. There's enough money to pay for everything. But when we measure money velocity, which means money effectively changing hands, companies going to the banks and getting loans or making payments for bills or for its employees, the money velocity is going down. So even if there's more money flooding the market, the money is not really being used, so the economy doesn't get accelerated and people don't buy Bitcoin using that money because the money is just sitting on banks.
Oh, very interesting. Well, we appreciate you giving us your insight. It's always valuable to hear from the master himself with 17 years of experience, folks. It's Marcel Peckman. Thank you for sharing some of your insights of what you're seeing in the markets. But now is the time that I want to get into our picks for 2022. Sam's going to be bringing you some hot ones here. So make sure you stay tuned. And if you haven't, go ahead, like, subscribe, Cointelegraph. We're going to be giving away that 1-month subscription for Markets Pro today. So chime in the chat with your Twitter handle. We're going to be hawking that chat today. So first things first, let's allow Sam to take the stage here and present his 4 picks for the best tokens of 2022.
Great. So as we talked about, we wanted to look at what are the top 4 potential projects to invest in for 2022 and moving forward. So for me, the 4 that I've chosen are PAX Gold, FTX token, Thorchain, and LIDO. And I'm going to explain briefly why I selected all these. So for PAX Gold, we finally have a condition where the price of gold is actually rising. It only took, massive geopolitical uncertainty, massive inflation, deepening negative real rates, and a pending recession for gold to actually have a bid, possibly for the first time in 10 years. So if you're a crypto investor and you want access to this, one of the best ways you can do that is through PAX Gold, right? Crypto investors can access the gold market through PAXG, which is an Ethereum-based asset that's backed by the yellow metal. So given the current financial economic backdrop, I think that PAX Gold could outperform moving forward, or at the very least, it can provide you with a good stable or anchor in the market. Secondly, I'm looking at FTX token. Again, maybe not the most exciting option, but during periods of uncertainty, holding a token that's backed by one of the biggest cryptocurrency exchanges could be very useful. So I think FTT as a top 3 or is backed by a top 3 cryptocurrency exchange can do very well. And for me, I'm trying to benchmark it compared to what Binance Coin did. If it does anything like what BNB has done over the past several years, FTT could be a really good option moving forward. The third pick that I have is Thorchain, which trades under the ticker symbol RUNE. Thor is a cross-chain DEX. It recently activated synthetic assets that are backed by the underlying asset as well as by RUNE. So according to Eric Voorhees, who's the CEO of Shapeshift, Thorchain is important because it extends Bitcoin's key attribute of immutability from the money layer to the exchange layer. So really bright future for Thorchain. I think you're going to start seeing that this year. And finally, I'm going to go with LIDO, LIDO. We know that Ethereum 2.0 gets a bad rap because the timeline for execution continues to get pushed back. But if you take a look at how much has been deposited into the Beacon chain, there's huge demand for ETH 2.0 or ETH 2.0 staking. So the problem, though, with that is that with current ETH prices where they are, meeting the minimum 32 ETH threshold to become a validator is very cost inhibitive. It's like over $90,000 at current prices. What LIDO does is it removes those barriers by offering a staking solution that allows essentially users to stake Ether with no lockups or minimum deposits. And it recently received $70 million in funding from Anderson Horowitz. So Danilo, if you can just share my screen for a sec, please. It just kind of take you through some of these major headlines. I mean, we'll start with the front page of the Wall Street Journal. You take a look at all these issues that we have in the world today, from the war to oil prices to uncertainty with the Fed. All this is going to lead well to potentially demand for gold. That's why PAX Gold is my choice. Thorchain, you take a look at how Thorchain has outperformed in Q1. Huge potential there. You move forward. Anderson Horowitz recently invested $70 million in LIDO. And then finally, FTX recently expanded into Europe with CSIC approval. Please, that's all I have to share, and I think that explains why I'm backing these projects.
So I noticed a quick little theme. Marcel, do you want to jump in first?
Yeah, Of course, first of all, I agree with the gold call. I think that's gonna last for another 100 years, even though Bitcoin maximalists think that gold is simply gonna vanish after 7,000 years. It's not gonna be like that. So good call, Sam, on gold. But about the FTX, so FTX token, just thinking out loud here, BNB, the token, as I can see, can exist without Binance Exchange because it has a large blockchain uh, dApps and it's really used. Their DEX is the number one in number of users, even when compared to Ethereum. So I just don't see how FTT, the token, can hold value without the FTX exchange itself.
Mhm. And that's exactly right. I think it does hold value because of the FTX exchange. I don't think it can do all the things that BNB can do for the reasons that you mentioned. But I take a look at it as an exchange-based token, and it's backed by a top three exchange by volume and probably the largest derivatives exchange. I think as FTX continues to grow and mature and become a major player in crypto as it's done, I think holding an asset that's backed by that exchange could be valuable. That's why I look at it as a more, I guess you could say, lower risk potential anchor for your portfolio during these periods of uncertainty. If we're in a full fledged bull market, maybe not. But I think looking at the liquidity conditions of the market today, I think holding FTT could be potentially valuable.
But my question is this: so when it comes to these exchange tokens, like what is the utility for those types of tokens, and I guess like why consider that a potential investment vehicle?
Yeah, well, I guess the utilities vary based on exchange from exchange to exchange. I just think that given the growth trajectory of FTX, we have massive adoption. I just think having an exposure to that kind of exchange that tends to grow regardless of the overall market conditions, I think could be a useful anchor for a portfolio. In the event that you can't hold stables based on our current picks, possibly getting exposure to something like FTX could be useful. I would put Binance Coin in this, but I think that the rally has already played out significantly, at least in terms of recently. So I think FTX has some runway there.
I
Do
mean,
you?
but
I was
like you
wondering
can
if you.
also consider like go
No, go ahead, Benton.
I just want to finish this one point. So like if you look at like crypto.com versus an FTT, like what was like a deciding factor for you when it came to like selecting that particular token?
Yeah, well, crypto.com is actually a great pick as well. For me, I'm trying to ride the momentum of FTX into 2022 and beyond,
Mm.
simply because we're not really sure what the market is doing right now. I mean, all of us here have been in this crypto space for a long time. What we're seeing over the past 6 months has been very, very unusual. A year ago now, we were getting Wyckoffed. Remember that? Remember that great time?
Mm.
So now, a year later, we're still not really sure what's going on. I think having exposure to a fast-growing industry stalwart like FTX could be useful. I don't use FTX myself, but if I'm going to be betting on an exchange, that would be near the top of my list.
And if you were going to kind of be talking to people that are more into stocks, would you recommend something like a coin, just because it's a Coinbase? Because it's kind of playing the exchange game. And I also wanted to throw in there with your LIDO pick. I think that they're just introducing the liquid staking, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
going to even add more oomph to that pick. Like you're going to be able to stake your Ethereum and then borrow against that. So that's a decent pick in my opinion as well.
Yeah, it's one that kind of flew under the radar, but it raised my attention after Anderson Horowitz just threw a whole bunch of money into that project. And if you take a look at now the total value locked, I think LIDO is doing really, really well. So again, you're playing on a theme here, and the theme is going to be that Ethereum staking is still a really big deal, despite all the issues that we're seeing with the rollout and everything. I think the numbers don't lie, and I think if anybody wants to access that type of that segment of the market, LIDO could potentially be a good option.
So I'm looking in the chat here. It looks like Vikram actually has a question for you. So how does PAXG compare with gold-based fiat? Any advantage apart being digital as of now?
Gold-based fiat is referring to like gold derivatives and things like that. The great thing about PAX is that it's backed by the yellow metal, and if you take a look at the way that it trades, it's pretty consistent with how gold trades. So if you're playing that theme that you want to actually have some kind of exposure, or you want price action to mirror maybe the spot price of gold, PAXG provides that outlet. Too much
Very
And do you
manipulation
think
in
the
the gold derivatives market.
do you think the CME is going to lose their control of the gold anytime soon? Like,
Uh, Probably not. I mean, I still see all that whole market as being really manipulated. Any kind of gold derivatives futures, we've seen that before. I think for crypto investors, those of us who don't have any problem holding a cryptocurrency, I think having one that's backed by gold is potentially a good opportunity, and it kind of allows you to kind of play both fields. You're benefiting from the digital asset revolution, and you're investing in that long term growth trajectory, but you're also getting exposure to gold at a time where it's finally set to actually outperform after making a 10-year cup and handle potentially. So that's where that comes into play.
Hmm. I thought that your Thorchain pick was interesting. I know they've had some issues, I guess, with a few
Mm-hmm.
exploits, as has most projects. But like, what is the value in cross chain dexes? Like, what are you seeing the evolution, especially in the dex space, and why could Rune be a potentially big player in this cross chain future?
Yeah, I think that the issues with the hack is a big deal, and I think even Eric Voorhees tweeted about that a while ago, saying that, you know what, maybe the growth was too aggressive at first. We really got to just kind of calm things down. We did have those exploits, so that's actually a real big issue. But I think looking forward, it's like you take a look at what they're doing. It's going to mean no wrap tokens on Ethereum, no censorship of transactions.
Hmm.
I just think that has a really powerful use case moving forward, especially as it continues to add different assets to its basket, to its support mechanism. We saw Doge a few months ago. I think this is one that really, if you're betting on cross-chain dexes, probably one of the best ones. They're at the forefront, in my opinion.
Very good. Go ahead, Marcel.
Bet still time for one last question.
Yeah. Go ahead. Your last question here.
So okay, on LIDO again. Historically, Ethereum changes their rules every year
Mm-hmm.
or even more often. So right now the staking is 32, requires 32 ETH. But what if next year it moves to 3.2 ETH? So drastically reduce the amount required to stake. What happens to LIDO?
Well, in that case, you removed one of the biggest value drivers. Not the only value driver, but one of the biggest ones. If they reduce the threshold, that's potentially going to make it a lot easier to just stake Ethereum outright. That might reduce the value proposition of Lido. But with those ETH people, you never quite know what's going to happen or what they're going to decide, or if they're going to go back running to Vitalik anytime they have an issue. But right now, it seems like with the threshold at $90,000, Lido's a good option, but that could change.
Agree.
Very interesting. Great insights today, Sam. Gotta say, the basket that you brought today was definitely unlike any other of the other panelists here. So good to see from a different perspective of why you believe in some of these tokens for 2022. Dropping the knowledge on us today. Don't forget, folks, we're giving away that 1 month subscription to Markets Pro. Drop your Twitter handle in chat. I see we got very active chat today. So make sure you ask your questions. If you have questions about some of these tokens presented today, now is the time to thank you, everyone who's been tuning in from around the globe, around the planet, around the universe, wherever you are. We thank you for jumping in today. All right, that was Sam's picks for this week. I'm going to go ahead and jump in here next with some of my tokens that I believe are going to outperform here in 2022. Let's go ahead and get this party started, Danilo. All right, folks. So I am selecting this week to have my top performing picks be Fantom, Avalanche, Cosmos, and Terra Luna. And so I'm going to show you a couple reasons of why I decided to select these picks for this week. So for Fantom, I combined a little bit of technical analysis here with a lot of these. And I also know a lot of these products are L1 tokens, which I'm a big believer in. As we continue to grow and expand in the future, I do believe these L1 chains are going to continue to provide significant value. So Danilo, if you wouldn't mind bringing up some of my charts here, I want to show you this Fantom chart. And so when I'm looking at this Fantom chart here, the first thing that kind of things that scream out to me is double top pattern here. And so I'm believing that with the recent news of Andre Crone leaving crypto forever, which he was closely associated with Fantom, I believe this is why we're seeing this giant crash. There's also some speculation I learned about before the show here about potential money moving off of chain. But to me, this is a long-term project for me that I want to get in close to $1. I see on this chart a floor right around 98 cents. So I am not a fan of catching knives. So I'm going to play this out. You can see this green box here is kind of a buy zone for me. So I want to see if it bounces off of this 98-cent level and breaks upwards. If it does, I want to kind of continue to allocate to my position at these levels. I do believe in the longevity of Fantom, even though there's this short-term ruckus right now. So I do think this could be a great buying opportunity for a long-term hold. And so that's kind of what went into some of my analysis when I'm looking at Fantom. Not only that, but I do feel like since they are a DAG, which is a directed acyclic graph, which is different than a blockchain, I do think that makes them unique in regards to their scalability and some of the innovations that they have coming out. If you want to use an example of bad news kind of in comparison to this, you can look at XRP and say, hey, they went through this lawsuit and potentially coming out on the other side of this. Now, the lawsuit and Andre Crone aren't really the same, but it's still big news, whether it's negative. And I do think in the short term, the price will continue to be impacted on Fantom. So moving on to my next pick, as I'm moving into the Avalanche ecosystem with AVAX being one of my biggest tokens for 2022. We saw the rise and surge of AVAX in 2021, and I think that momentum will continue to move forward. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my AVAX chart to show you some of the TA that I've been using to take a look at where I'm looking to allocate and add more to my positions. So let's see. Marcel's not a fan of any of the TA, but on this chart, I'm marking. Sorry.
Oh, you need to hurry up, buddy. You need to hurry it up.
All right, time's up. Well, I guess that's it. So Avalanche, Cosmos, Terra, those are my picks.
Bullet points. Come on.
Quick rundown. All right, boom. You got my chart there. Danilo, we can go ahead and take that off screen. I'm just gonna run through. When we talk about Cosmos, Jordan recommends it. I look at it. When we talk about Luna, I'm impressed to see what we got going on there. I'm a big fan of how Luna is being burned to stabilize the stable coins in the protocol. So those are my picks.
Okay. Hey, you really like that Fantom one, didn't you?
I did, man. I spent all my time while I was trying to defend. I was going to die on that hill.
Well, we talked about that more before the show. That's like there's been a lot of drama going on with Fantom, but you asked me earlier. I'm like, I think it's got some long-term legs. We just got to get past this shaky point. So,
do we have any
other
questions?
From you two guys. Yeah, I want to hear about Cosmos Atom because I see lots of other projects saying that they're built on Cosmos, but I think some of them are getting a market cap higher than Cosmos itself. So how exactly the Atom token extracts value from those systems or blockchains or whatever that are built using the Cosmos ecosystem?
You want that one, Benton?
Wait, are you asking me or are you asking Sam and Jordan?
Either Jordan or you. Where does the
Jordan
value from the Atom token comes from?
The Cosmos Atom token. I mean, I did. It's harder for me to explain. I know that the for the whole IBC, which is the inter-blockchain communication protocol, which runs is the backbone of Cosmos. Cosmos is like the base layer of it, and the token is required for the whole ecosystem to run. I remember looking at it, I'm like, well, what's the value proposition for Cosmos when all these other tokens can operate and you use them to transact? But it does have a fundamental it's built into the system underneath all these other things, so they wouldn't really be able to operate without the Cosmos chain being there from what I could read. But I need to understand that more better myself too.
If that's true, I'm backing this decision. Seems like a very smart choice because there are a lot of other networks using the Cosmos ecosystem. So it seems pretty solid.
But
Yeah,
I mean, and my thing with Cosmos is that the big narrative I think we're seeing this year is interoperability, and so that's why I am a big believer in Cosmos being one of the top performers.
yeah. Shifting to Luna, I think that's probably one of the best picks. You take a look at the Bitcoin reserves, you take a look at the stablecoin ecosystem. I think that's probably one of the best picks. I agree with that one. Avalanche, I'm a big bull on Avalanche, as you know. In terms of price appreciation, though, it might be hard, I think, for it to outperform in 2022, just given the rally that it had and overall where we are in terms of the market structure. But those are just some details. I don't think that's going to be a too inhibitive for anyone who's thinking long term.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when I was kind of looking at the charts for AVAX, that market cycle is kind of nasty right now with where it was at up around 150 back in November, December before kind of the market tanked.
it'll be interesting to see how Terra does evolve. And they had that issue with the funding. I know they injected like over $1 billion, but that's because like they're being really generous with their APRs, and it's not sustainable long term. They're going to have to revamp the structure at some point. So I'll be curious to see
Yeah.
how that works out.
But when the
So
market's tanking, Luna continues to surge,
Mm-hmm.
which I find
Well, that was because
fascinating.
they got a big injection of money into the treasury for UST.
Yeah.
That was part of the reason. But
Mm.
yeah,
but what I think that could be
Marcel.
holding back Avalanche is the use. If you go to DappRadar, for example, so Avalanche biggest decentralized application, which is Trader Joe, the DEX, it traded $200 million over the past 7 days, and that's really small. That's less than Fantom's Spooky Swap. That's less than Polygon's Quick Swap. So why do you think Avalanche use on DEX is not picking up?
So, like, I'll give you a perfect example. I think, the big thing that I like about the Avalanche ecosystem right now is it has been one of the most battle tested blockchains in the short term. We don't hear about crashes or shutdowns. The second thing I really liked about AVAX is I'm a big fan of their subnets, which they're going to be starting to release here this year as well. Essentially, these are just mini blockchains that will allow projects to operate kind of on a mini blockchain on top of the AVAX blockchain. So I do think that with some of these updates, you could see an influx of users into this particular ecosystem, but it's still very early for some of these projects. So I'm not as concerned. I think it's a tortoise and the hare, and in the long run, AVAX will continue to thrive. Any further questions? All right. Let's go ahead and move into now Jordan's picks for this week. I know he's got a couple of the same, but he's got some interesting perspectives which were different than mine as to why he picked his best tokens to outperform in 2022. So let's let Jordan take it away.
all right. So the tokens I picked this week, so two of the ones that Benton picked, AVAX and Cosmos, and then Solana and Polkadot. Again, I went all about the train tracks, the base layers for this my picks this week, just because being through a couple cycles now in cryptos, the chains where things are built on survive, while a lot of the projects that are built on them don't. So if we're talking about long-term like value proposition and holding maintaining wealth, I chose these ones. AVAX I chose because of fast transaction speeds compared to Ethereum, and it's less expensive, especially since the token is cheaper. And as far as EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine compatible networks go, AVAX is kind of at the top of the list. So you got Binance Smart Chain too, but AVAX is my top choice. You see it interacted or integrated with a lot of the top protocols like Aave, which is also on Polygon, another really good competitor, or layer two actually for Ethereum. AVAX has a thriving ecosystem as it continues to attract new projects, and there's a healthy daily trading volume for AVAX token because it's listed on some of the big exchanges like Coinbase and Binance. And to your point, Marcel, I think that there's not a whole lot of projects that are really popular on top of AVAX currently, so there's not a need to be transacting them on Trader Joe. I think as more projects come to AVAX, they could potentially see an increase, especially Trader Joe has like they're doing a launch pad and some other things like that. The second one I picked was Cosmos. It's a rapidly growing ecosystem of projects with new ones launching every week. One of the things that really caught my eye, reminded me of Ethereum back in 2017, 2018 with the ICOs and the airdrops, especially airdrops projects launching on the network, trying to drop their tokens to people, trying to get them to engage. I see a lot of that going on in Cosmos right now, which means there's a big push, and a lot of developers are actually interested in developing on the project. Obviously, probably a lot of scammers too, trying to scam some people, which just comes with crypto. But overall, I see Cosmos as like being a rising star in the whole layer one game. And as you mentioned, Benton, the interoperability is one of the primary focuses. The inter-blockchain communication protocol was the focus of Cosmos, and that's all about interoperability. You got some of the biggest chains or the most pertinent currently, like Terra, as mentioned by Benton, that operate on top of Cosmos, along with Crypto.com, and some up-and-coming stars like Osmosis Dex or Juno, which is a smart contract platform. Third one I got is Solana. Big money backing from the development of Solana, tied in with FTX, like Sam mentioned earlier. So I think that money there is really going to push it. It hasn't been focused on the EVM compatibility, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in my point, because a lot of the EVM compatible ones, they all kind of seem to have the same limitations or stuff like that. Whereas Solana kind of came from a different approach, and the tech is one of the best techs out there as far as speed and cost. I know they've had some kinks and some setbacks, but again, backing, I think that moving into the future, it's only going to get better. They're going to work out those kinks. And finally, Polkadot just finally starting to get going. It really missed this whole last year as far as having their project launch on protocol, but we get Moonbeam or Moon River, whichever one's on Polkadot now, launching and doing the interoperability. So I think it's going to be an outperformer going forward, especially because it's all about interoperability between networks, and it's trying to be like a layer 0 token. So those are my 4 picks. Interoperability and layer 1 protocols, where all the other future protocols will be built.
Very good. Who wants to jump in here first, guys? Marcel, you're on mute.
I'm mute. I'm not mute.
Go ahead. There you go.
So everyone here is long on AVAX and Cosmos. Did I get this right? All the 3 of you are either long or recommending AVAX and Cosmos. Is that it?
That's right.
I mean,
that's right,
I'm
Marcel.
pretty pro AVAX. Cosmos not so much per se, but
it looks like a crowded trade. Just saying, I don't know the projects that much, but if everybody's pointing to the same direction, it tells me it's a crowded trade. So,
is it a crowded trade though when we're in a bear market, man? Or is it like we're all reevaluating our portfolios, and this one looks like it's actually going to be decent compared to some of these other ones, you know?
That's a good question, but psychologically speaking, and you're the expert here, when there's less people interested on a project, there's more upside. Because if everybody is expecting the coin to rally, then it's simply not going to happen because everybody's already long. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. Marcel, you put up a really good point, because I was talking about 100,000 Bitcoin back in like early 2019, and I was expecting that to happen in the 4-year cycle, and then 2 years later, everyone's talking about 6-figure Bitcoin, everyone, and then look what happened. Didn't happen. Those are good points. I think I like Jordan's picks. For me, I think maybe the one weaker point is probably Polkadot. I just see it still. I like the analogy of the train track. I just still see Polkadot as lacking the infrastructure, perhaps. As you mentioned, Jordan, we haven't really seen much over the past year. Is it just because nobody understands how it works, or are there other reasons why it's been so slow?
No, I agree with that, man. Everything you're saying, I'm like, we've talked about this before. I was like, damn, this is hard to use. Screw this crap. But that's what I'm saying. It's just because of all that, I think it's going to outperform when it finally gets its shit together, you know?
Yeah.
I guess the one issue that I have with Polkadot is like you're creating the Kusama ecosystem in Polkadot, which it kind of creates this like direct competition between the two. And then will one ultimately win? What happens if all the liquidity moves to Kusama but not Polkadot? Like, so I guess like I'm still kind of stuck on Polkadot, but I do love the Solana pick and obviously Cosmos and AVAX, and so I guess I would be on the fence about Polkadot.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. That's one of my earlier questions too. I'm like, they're competing networks, and to Marcel's point earlier, like, why do I need the Polkadot when all these other projects are gonna run on it and not need Polkadot to transact? So, what is the value proposition for Polkadot? I don't know. I need to look more into that one. But I just think, I don't know. I hear a lot of like some people that are in the know are like, Polkadot's gonna come up. I'm like, man, and I try to get a little bit of different from what you guys all picked too.
I mean, if I were a betting man, I would say Polkadot will do very well during the next bull market. I think it has the name recognition. It has the backstory. The developers. I think you're onto something there, but doesn't matter if we like it or not. I think that it'll pump probably in the right time.
Yeah, and like for all this, like guys, remember we're under like 200, what, 2 trillion now. Like, what happens when we go to like an $8 trillion market cap? All these stupid projects even are gonna go like ape shit for a little bit, and then that's why then the market like just tanks. But some of these picks, like the layer ones, might not tank as bad.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Go ahead, Marcel.
yeah, I still have an issue with Solana. I know you mentioned the setbacks it had and they were solved, but yes, they're solved because a team backed by Solana Labs is the only one that is working on the solution. So don't you think it's way too centralized for the blockchain and decentralized application space, having a single company backing it? Because
Well,
when we see Ethereum
I'm gonna use your own words against you. I'm gonna use your words against you, Marcel. Like when I asked you about the ETF, like these companies, that's not gonna be a drawback to them. That's gonna be a positive. So like, especially if enterprises are gonna be coming in, they might look to Solana like this ain't the Wild West. Like this is a company we could work with, kind of a thing. This is just it's a bridge in between the fully decentralized future that all the crypto heads want and like what we're currently working with. So
Hopefully they don't rug pull.
yeah. SPF is like,
I
peace.
mean, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Solana. I love the scalability, I think, of that network. Do they have some hurdles to get over? Sure. But I think that native token is going to have long-term value. We saw what it did last year. The Solanas, the AVAXs, the Lunas all had a massive year last year. This year, we saw how the markets are. It's going to be interesting to see what happens towards the end of this year. But the markets tend to surprise us when we least expect it. It only takes one. Only takes one. Any other questions for Jordan here?
No.
All right, folks, I think our poll is going to go live just shortly. But before we get the poll going for you all, to make sure you vote, Adrian, I don't know if we're going to do the tokens today, if we're doing the person today, but make sure you're voting. Let's see. Oh, okay, we are doing the person. Saw it live in chat there. So make sure you vote for whoever you think had the best picks for 2022. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into our Markets Pro segment for this week. We're going to tell you about the 2 tokens you should have got in based off our Markets Pro information. So let's go ahead and jump into this, Danilo. All right, folks, you may not want to FOMO into this one. Synthetics network token had a massive rally. News is what moves the crypto market, and the Newsquake service by CT Markets Pro helps traders stay on top of important developments. So Newsquakes are these automated alerts that instantly notify users when market moving events happens, as we see here on the chart. That's exactly what happened. We had a Newsquake for SNX Synthetics Network token, and this was listed on Binance US, put massive upside pressure on the token's price last week. So interestingly enough, there was 2 Newsquakes, and the second Newsquake is actually the one that moved the market. So price shot up from 398 all the way up to 477 in 23 hours. So that's a 20% increase, folks, on the synthetics. If you've been trading this one, has kind of been in the tank as of recently. So this was a pleasant surprise for those that were able to catch that Newsquake. Now, in regards to our second token, we used the Vortex score for this one. This is the Request Network trading under the ticker REQ. And so those aren't familiar with the Vortex score, this is a comparison between the current market and social conditions and those in the past. So Vortex score of 80 or above is considered confidently bullish. Conversely, a low Vortex score below 30 indicates historically bearish conditions. So what happened here? Well, you saw that 82 Vortex score pop up, which is typically a bullish indicator. And so this is exactly what happened. Is you saw this pop up, the bullish score 82 anticipated the second spike of the token's price from 20 cents all the way up to 25 cents in just under 7 hours. That's the power of the Vortex score, is you're able to catch these trades and get into it. And that's the power of Markets Pro, which is why we love using this platform for a lot of our trades. Don't forget to be chiming into the chat with your Twitter handle, we're going to be giving away that 1 month subscription of Markets Pro. Folks, get your votes in. Who presented the best portfolio, the basket of goodies today? We want to have you vote in the chat. Guys, what kind of hot topics do we have while we're waiting for our votes to come in and for everyone to finish their voting?
Does anybody got any like honorable mentions that they didn't get to cover this week that they like?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Like I mentioned earlier, I got Polygon and even like a Theta. I've heard several people that I just mentioned that they like how Theta's system works. I know a lot of people, it doesn't get a lot of coverage, but
I was just looking at my charts. VLX. I'm still bullish on VLX. That is in the absolute crapper right now, but it's pretty much replica of Solana. So all they got to do is get some marketing together.
I'm just happy that Markets Pro seemed to identify a trade for synthetics. Was it synthetics? You know, no other coin has wrecked my bags more than synthetics. I'll tell you that right now. That one, that's like that's the Zcash of 2021. You know, all these high hopes, synthetic assets on the blockchain, and nada.
Mm-hmm.
We got folks in the chat saying
all of you
Dogecoin.
guys, Doge. I think all of you guys missed one of the biggest underdogs here. I think Uniswap token, it has like 70% market share of DEXs on volume, and it's not even a top 20 token. So I don't understand it, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know why that one. What's pulling people to want to hold Uniswap token though? Like I'd never gotten rid of my airdrop, but I'm like, man, maybe I should have. Like that DeFi run, I could have done better with flipping that into something else. But you know,
I think Jordan, right now they cannot hand out dividends, like pay the holders some money because of the use of the DEX. But someday they will find out a way to circumvent regulation and pay the holders some kind of dividends.
Interesting. We'll see. All right, folks, the poll is concluded. Let's see. Our winner for today is Sam Borgi in there with 48% of the votes. Jordan and myself second with 26% of the votes. Yes. We also have to pick our Markets Pro winner, the 1 month subscription that we are giving away. So let's go ahead and scan the chat here. Let's see who has Vikram. We've already given you your Markets Pro subscription before. Vikram's back. Love having Vikram on the show. Friend of the show. Let's see who is dropping their Twitter handle in the chat. What'd you say?
Vikram can give a plug for Markets Pro. He clearly likes using it.
I was gonna say. All right, I don't see any Twitter handles in there, so I don't know what we're gonna do for our winner today. First person to drop their Twitter handle in the chat wins. How about that?
So
we'll pick our winner.
Sam was the winner. Sam was the winner, picking the safe choice. PAX Gold. Props, Sam. Nicely done.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
It's gold time to shine. That only took a little over a decade of doing absolutely nothing but embarrassing Peter Schiff. And now we're seeing some finally some potential upward momentum now.
All right, folks, we got a Twitter handle. Connor Colmer, our let's see, at KOLMERCM. You're going to be our winner today for Markets Pro. He was the first one to drop his Twitter handle in, so congrats to Connor. Folks, any closing thoughts here that we want to issue to our crowd today that is watching? I'll let Marcel jump in first. Any final thoughts for today's show?
Okay, so as I said at the beginning of the show, Ethereum and Bitcoin looks fairly priced based on ETF methodology. But remember that if war escalates or if the SWIFT system fails, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and cryptos are ready to take that place. So there are a lot of other markets that we can reach within a day, within a week, and those numbers, those values of Bitcoin and Ethereum can quadruple, quintuple, go by 10 times in a single week. So don't miss out. Buy it every month.
DCA, Sam, any final thoughts for today?
It goes without saying that the selection that I had, for example, includes Bitcoin. You know, we're giving you a diversified basket. That's not including Bitcoin or Ethereum. But I think that any crypto investor, if you're really in this for the long term and you're looking at it from a value fundamental perspective, Bitcoin has to be the anchor of your portfolio.
And Jordan.
Yeah, it's kind of rough out there right now in the crypto market, but this is when the hardy can scoop up some low price tokens. I do agree getting some of these more solid long term picks, but also if we were talking about the biggest gainers, that's like a SHIB. It's going to be one of those tokens. So keep an eye on projects that are promising long term. Realize we're kind of in the depths of it. We could go do like we did in 2018, 6,000 to 3,000, where everybody's like gut punched. But if there's some greater event in the world, but if that does happen, we'll see a spring back in the future as well. So just stick with it. Don't lose faith. And long term, we're all going to head up. So keep the faith.
There we go. Exactly. My closing thoughts for today is pick them long right now. Consolidation, potential bottom out, hopefully for some projects. So when there's blood in the streets, make sure you are ready to deploy your capital for those long-term projects that you like. Thank you all for tuning in today, and we appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with us on the Market Report. Hopefully you were able to pick up some nuggets that you couldn't find anywhere else on the internet. Thanks for tuning in to the Market Report. This has been Cointelegraph, the future of money. Over and out.